Part 1. I remember the exact moment my mother smiled as if she had just delivered the most generous gift in the world, while my children stood there holding something that felt suspiciously weightless. The sun was bright that afternoon, the kind that makes everything look happier than it actually is. My nephew Jason was standing in the driveway, keys dangling from his fingers, grinning so wide it looked like his face might split. Behind him sat a brand new Range Rover, gleaming like a trophy. Everyone clapped. Everyone cheered. And then my mom turned toward my kids with that same smile and handed them a plain white envelope. At first, I thought maybe it was something meaningful. Savings bonds. A check. Something thoughtful, even if it wasn't flashy. My daughter Lily looked at me before opening it, her eyes curious but hopeful. My son Ethan leaned closer, excited in that quiet way he always is. They tore it open together. And then, nothing. No card. No note. No money. Just air trapped in paper. The silence that followed was louder than all the cheering moments before. My mom laughed, a short, dismissive sound, as if this was all part of some joke only she understood. "Oh, don't look so serious," she said, waving her hand. "It's symbolic. Teaches them not to expect handouts." The words hit harder than I expected. Around us, a few relatives chuckled awkwardly, unsure whether to agree or stay quiet. Jason revved the engine of his new car, drowning out the discomfort, and my sister beamed like she had just won something. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger at first, just disbelief. This wasn't new behavior from my mother, but it had never been this blatant. Growing up, I was always the responsible one, the one who didn't need help, the one who could manage. My sister, on the other hand, always needed support, and my mom made sure she got it. But this was different. This was my children standing there, confused and embarrassed, being taught a lesson they never asked for. Lily tried to laugh it off. "Maybe it's invisible money," she joked softly, but I could hear the crack in her voice. Ethan just folded the envelope neatly and put it in his pocket like it still held value. That broke me more than anything. They weren't spoiled kids. They never expected expensive gifts. But they didn't deserve to be humiliated either. The rest of the party continued like nothing had happened. Conversations picked back up, food was served, and Jason took turns giving people rides in the car. My mom watched him with pride, completely at ease. I stayed quiet, but my mind was racing. I kept replaying her words, teaches them not to expect handouts. The irony was almost laughable. Jason had just been handed nearly $80,000 without lifting a finger. As the evening wound down, I gathered my kids and headed toward the car. Lily was unusually quiet, staring out the window. Ethan finally spoke. "Did we do something wrong?" he asked. That question hit deeper than anything else that day. I shook my head immediately. "No, never think that," I said firmly. But inside, I knew something had to change. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat alone in the living room with that empty envelope in my hand. I turned it over and over, thinking about all the years I had stayed silent, all the times I had let things slide to keep the peace. I realized something important then. Silence had a cost. And this time, my kids had paid for it. What my mother didn't know, what no one in that family knew, was that I had been making quiet moves for years. While everyone assumed I was just getting by, I had been building something. Something solid, something that didn't rely on approval or validation. I looked at that empty envelope one last time and smiled, not out of humor, but out of certainty. She thought she had made a point that day. But she had no idea what she had just set in motion. Part 2. The next morning felt different, like the air itself had shifted overnight. I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. For so long, I had played the role my family expected, quiet, dependable, invisible when it came to recognition. But watching my kids stand there with that empty envelope had drawn a line I couldn't ignore anymore. This wasn't just about me. It was about what they were learning, what they were being shown about their worth. Over breakfast, Lily tried to act normal, chatting about school, while Ethan carefully placed the empty envelope beside his plate like it still meant something. I reached over and took it gently. "We're not keeping this," I said softly. They both looked at me, surprised. "Why?" Ethan asked. I smiled, not with sadness this time, but with something steadier. "Because it doesn't define you. And neither does what anyone else gives or doesn't give." That afternoon, I made a call I had been putting off for years. My mother answered on the second ring, cheerful, as if yesterday had been a complete success. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply told her the truth. I told her what her actions had done, how it affected her grandchildren, and how I wouldn't allow that kind of behavior around them again. There was silence on the other end, real silence this time, not the kind filled with laughter or deflection. She tried to brush it off at first, calling me too sensitive, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I didn't back down. For the first time, I didn't let her rewrite the situation. I told her boundaries were no longer optional. Respect wasn't negotiable, and if she couldn't treat my children with basic fairness, then she wouldn't be part of their lives the way she had been. What she didn't expect was what came next. A week later, I invited the entire family over. My mother, my sister, Jason, everyone. Curiosity alone made sure they showed up. They walked into my home, looking around with mild interest, still carrying that same quiet assumption about me. Dinner was simple, but the atmosphere was charged. They could feel something was different, even if they couldn't name it yet. After we ate, I stood up and walked to the front door. Through the window, you could see it parked outside, sleek, polished, undeniable. A brand new SUV, easily matching the price and prestige of Jason's Range Rover. The room went silent. My mom's expression changed instantly, confusion mixing with something else, realization, maybe. I wanted to show you something, I said calmly. Not to compete, not to prove anything to you, but to make a point for my kids. I looked at Lily and Ethan, who were watching me with wide eyes. We don't measure value by what someone gives us. We build it ourselves. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out 2 envelopes, this time not empty. I handed one to each of my children. Inside were documents, education funds, savings accounts, investments I had quietly set up over the years. Not flashy, not for show, but real, solid, earned. My sister looked stunned. Jason said nothing for once. And my mother, she couldn't speak. The same woman who had laughed a week ago now sat frozen, facing a reality she hadn't anticipated. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about respect, foresight, and quiet strength she had overlooked for years. I don't need to teach my kids not to expect handouts, I continued, my voice steady. I teach them how to stand without them. No one clapped this time. There was no cheering, just silence filled with understanding. The kind that lingers longer than any applause ever could. Later that night, after everyone left, Lily hugged me tighter than she had in years. That was better than any car, she whispered. Ethan nodded in agreement, a quiet smile on his face. And as I stood there, watching my children walk forward with confidence instead of doubt, I realized something simple but powerful. The biggest mistake my mother made wasn't the empty envelope. It was underestimating what I had already built in silence.